we met for the first time in an a cappella group at Williams College, and so a cappella has been with us for a long time, and we've gone through phases where we use tons of instruments, and then more recently in this 4-person format we peeled it back to try to focus on vocals more, and sometimes that's just putting vocals louder in the mix on a record, and sometimes that means that, you know, in a live show we usually use just the one microphone so that it's so that we can hear each other blending in the room, and that feels more like an a cappella group than it did previously when we had a drummer and we were all using monitors, and everything was amplified separately. And yeah, a cappella is still a big deal for us.
It takes a little while to craft the harmonies. Part of it's been practicing with the same 4 guys singing together for, I guess now, since we were singing a cappella back in school together, it's a decade basically. But figuring out different ways of combining the voices and the different textures that come from stacking chords in different ways. So you can have, you know, this guy on the lowest note, and, you know, each guy stacked up this way, and then you can flop the chord and have the guy who is on the lowest note on the highest note. And those types of different chord stackings have different sounds, some of them brighter, some of them darker in tone. And then also just actually the notes that we're singing when we're trying to craft the lines together, we'll basically throw a bunch of different arrangements against the wall and see what sticks. So say, try singing, just holding that note for a while and I'll move. Okay, you move and I'll hold the note for a while. Okay, why don't we try throwing the third guy in and let's build it up. And so we just try sometimes dozens of different combinations on each tune when we have a melody, and then we'll sift back through and pick the things that we like the most to try to build up a full arrangement of the vocals for a song.
Yeah, I'd say we have gotten better over time at quickly finding something that sounds good, but then once we find that thing that sounds good, we don't stop there anymore. We kind of continue experimenting and trying to find something that's good and unique, or something that we haven't done before. And so we spend always a lot of time trying to figure out what to do harmonically and vocally on a given song. But yeah, we're spending that time in different ways now. We do not have one songwriting process, and we follow steps 1 through 5 and we end up with a song. That's not how it works at all. There are songs that we started 8 years ago that are still not done, and there are other ones that we finish in a day. There are some songs where we go in and we say, let's write about the current political climate. Let's write about Fuzzy the bear, you know, and we have a topic and we try to write about something. I would say that's a rarity for us. Typically we're on the very organic side where there's a kernel of something. That could be musical, that could be lyrical, but whatever it is, the song kind of grows out of that thing. And that could take, like I was saying, a really long time. It could gestate for 3 years, and then we come back to it and we say, let's slow that down to half speed, let's change the key, let's make the rhythm of it, you know, be in a 3 meter instead of a 4 meter, and everything changes about it. Also, sometimes we come in and we play something, you know, someone comes in and says, hey, here's a verse and a chorus of something, and we're kind of like, actually that's pretty much there. Let's just follow that logically to its conclusion, and it might be done that day. Mm-hmm. So it takes all types, and all 4 of us are very heavily involved at all the stages. So
yeah, one thing that always keeps us on our toes is having all 4 of us being deeply involved in the writing process, and also all 4 of us being very opinionated. And so anytime that any of us come with even a fully formed idea, it's gonna shapeshift usually to some extent. And so it's been sort of an exercise in letting go and working collaboratively with friends and trying to see a vision that all 4 of us want, which is different than what any subgroup of us wants even.
Yeah, usually musicians, I think, are are loath to show someone an unfinished product because you want to make it perfect before you show it to someone and then have them just be blown away right on the spot. And that still is how we feel about people outside of the band. But within the band, it's actually usually advantageous to show someone else very early what you're working on before you've formed too many attachments to it, so that you can go into that conversation and really be open-minded to getting excited about their ideas and really experiencing it from their perspective. You know, when I show Harris something, like, he might respond really heavily to one part of it, and maybe that's partly because he didn't like the rest of it, or maybe it's just that that's the one thing that really inspired him to contribute this other section. And so, you know, we try to not really tease that apart too much and just go with the flow and see where we land based on what all four of us like, because that usually then organically feels like something that is within the Darlingside universe. Otherwise, if we try to plan it too much, it kind of ends up feeling a little bit stilted, like we're trying to fit ourselves into a mold that nobody really has even defined for us. So.
We were always on our way, rolling up our sleeves, ever moving forward in the track where we lived our simple lives. With our blinders on, eyes to the horizon. I know, no doctor, but I know can't live in the past. But the only way to go is to go back and return to who we were before we disappeared into the nothing that is. Now we can see the sweeping wind waiting out the storm, stuck under the awning. I know, no doctor, but I know can't live in the past. But the only way to go is to go back. Into Everglades, greener yesterdays, strip the storms away. Go back to the start, photos in the dark, before they fade. So we hope to we are, even into the arc, beyond our furthest edges, to a world full of strange and towering skies, a chance to choose in time, to set out on our own way. I know, no doctor, but I know, no doctor, but I know can't live in the past. But the only way to go is to go back.
The song Go Back was actually, I think, based on Back to the Future 2, is it? Or no, you watched the original Back to the Future movie and started writing some lyrics in response to Marty McFly, the main character, and some of the time travel forward and backwards, and what if you could go back and change things, and then it would change the future, and then I think that sort of started to inspire some of that time travel stuff. Marty McFly used to be in the chorus in Don's first draft. It was what was it? Much as Marty S. McFly and I
And
try.
I try. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
which was the only way to go is to go back was much as Marty S. McFly, and I try, and then it would hit the next verse.
The doctor stuck around in the chorus, but became more of a sort of metaphorical, doctor expert figure, rather than being literally Doc Brown. And Marty McFly was excised for the betterment of the song. Often it really helps actually to have something that's fun as you're generating a song. And that allows you to take other things less seriously and be creative and not have your editing brain coming in and saying, this is stupid. How you call yourself a songwriter and there's this negative voice that can come on in your brain. But if you're allowing yourself to write about Marty McFly and to write about the dog and the skateboard and all of these things, that you can always go back later and mess around with it and see what happens. But maybe a few of the things stick, and they're things you never would have gotten to if you hadn't allowed yourself to really goof off and populate the song with all the strange artifacts of a particular world. Because that's one thing about songs is you can get stuck in a land of abstractions, and Go Back ended up being a very abstract song in a lot of ways, talking about some more philosophical things, but I think it helps to get a little bit of unique language in a song so that you're not always saying, ooh baby, maybe, like, I want to go, why don't you listen to me, stay, if those kinds of really typical things. You can move away from that by forcing yourself to use specific details from a world that's not your own, whether that's a movie like Back to the Future, or we've had some other songs that have quoted lines from a poem, or used like The God of Loss is another song of ours that was inspired by a book, The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy, and that's a book that Owen really enjoyed, and so he sort of started speaking from the perspective of one of the characters, and then started putting in a few details from that world, and even using some of the language, which then we went back and kind of made sure that it wasn't, just literally telling the story of that. But, even if you try to go in and really plagiarize something, just really take the thing that's good about something else and do it in your own song, it's actually difficult to do it in a way that is literally just taking the thing. It's hard not to put your own stamp on it when you're doing that. So.
Yeah. think lyrically with the song "The Ancestor," I know that one took a long time. We had the melody, which had a very exact cadence, and a certain number of syllables needed to fit into each line, and we had this sort of group feel that was building up around what the song would feel like. And I know that in particular, one of the members of our band, Dave, was struggling with how to fit exact lines into the constraints of the melody, and he wanted it to have a certain feel that would match the instrumental feel that we were coming up with. Some sentences that would have the sound that would reflect the arrangement that was growing. And I think just at the time, he was interested in there were a lot of songs about sort of how the future is bleak and things are terrible, and I think that at that time he saw there was sort of like a ray of sort of maybe there could be actually something good or something new in the distant future, and sort of followed that line down to, well, if I have a child and they have a child and a child and a child, and you know, if I am the ancestor of something that in 1,000 years is, you know, some child floating through the universe in a spacecraft, you know, there's always sort of something new out on the horizon. And I think we just started to grow that world, and suddenly we were hanging out in nebulas, and the baby boy in the future is actually made out of metal and things like that. So it's sort of a science fictional thing. We definitely enjoy, just like Go Back, our other song being inspired by Back to the Future. We enjoy a lot of science fiction play, reading it, watching movies in that camp. We have Harrison Ford and our song called Harrison Ford. And so, yeah, definitely enjoy that topic and expressing our feelings through those types of landscapes.
Silent word from my ancestors. Congratulations, you got the job. Bright stars in the sky, I can never hold on to. I can't let by. I never can decide my every day's always everything flies by. Don't know why I try. Harrison and I are on a bird he built. Our old sedans, balloons and duct tape. Projected in the cabin, there's an agent he calls the wolf. She never shows her face or looks as big as the house. She says, "Burn things and meet me on the road. Leave me now or think I need to tell my mom that I'm probably all the bright planets that hang in the air never fall down or float away. I never can decide what every day's always everything flies by. Don't know why I try. Never can decide what every day's always everything flies by. Don't know why I try. Don't know what the birds say, don't know what the birds listen to them all day. Nothing sounds like words. Don't know if the colors look the same to you. Maybe you see white the way that I see blue. Birds don't know what you say. Birds don't know what you. Might as well just say whatever comes to you. I don't know where time goes. Don't know where the time.
Yeah, you can find our music on pretty much any platform on the interwebs, on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music and Amazon, and also our website, darlingside.com. And can you find our music in a Best Buy or no?
You asked exactly the wrong person.
I don't know
about
where our
to
music
find our
is.
music online. Luckily, given that a lot of musicians like Harris have no idea how the internet works, they have made it very simple. So you upload it in one place and it goes to everywhere else. So darlingside.com is probably the best hub for where to find our live show schedule. But then, in addition to that, you can be redirected to anywhere else you need to get from there. But yes, if you're Spotify or iTunes or really any of the other services, you should be able to find it there. And if you can't, feel free to leave us a note on our website and we'll try to get it up there.